I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, coming at you curled up in my bed with my heated blanket. I just spent some time in the hot tub in my building and then in a hot shower. It is fucking freezing cold where I am anyway, and I'm really over it. So I'm going to bed at 10:30 these days, just wanting to be in bed and warm. And I started my new job last week, and so I've just been learning new things. It's just exhausting. I mean, it's incredible. I'm loving it so far, but it's exhausting. So it's just that time of year where you're just always cold and tired, and just curling up in bed seems nice. So I mean, and also, who am I kidding? I record many podcasts from bed, if I'm being honest with you. But this is a podcast about like sex and relationships, so somehow this all feels very appropriate. I don't know why I'm trying to justify this to you or to myself. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're staying warm. I hope you're staying healthy wherever you are. I wanted to take a quick second to talk about, to circle on back, I guess, to last week's episode where we talked about sexual myths. I guess technically it was 2 weeks ago, right? But blue balls came up as a thing because, as I mentioned in the episode, I had always, been told that blue balls was a thing, and a very excruciating thing at that. And it wasn't until last year when I was speaking with two guys, and they just were like, yeah, that's not really a thing. It's a tactic that men use to manipulate women into, helping them finishing the job or whatever. And I was blown away, pun intended, because I don't know, it always seemed like such an intense thing that the men in my life who I've witnessed experience it seemed to be experiencing it. It seemed agonizing. And so that's what made me start wondering if it really was something that was blown out of proportion. These jokes are just there, aren't they? Or if it was something that, maybe only a select amount of people experience. So of course I went to TikTok because that's where you go these days. And I'm very happy on TikTok. I really, really was trying to go against it, but here we are. And I love TikTok. So perfect. Here we go. Anyway, so I posted asking about it and got a lot of responses. I think only one person said that it was a manipulative tactic. And then everybody else who commented said it was absolutely real and extremely painful. And, gave me various scenarios when they had experienced it. Really, actually very fascinating. And I just posted another TikTok kind of following up on my findings. And I mean, I guess like humans aren't a monolith. People who have penises aren't a monolith. Like maybe the two guys that I spoke to have never experienced it. And that's fine. That's them, right? But that doesn't mean that other people haven't experienced it. And it seems too that some people might experience it in puberty and then it goes away. Some people experience it later in life, all the way through their life. Some people it's really intense and excruciating. Others, described it as a slight discomfort. So yeah, it seems like it all depends. Go figure, right? But it was really fascinating to kind of have that conversation and get that feedback because, I'll never experience it. I'll never get a sense of what that's like. I can't imagine. And it also kind of got me thinking about how the concept of blue balls and women gatekeeping sex has been played out in popular culture and like the sitcoms and in the movies that we watch. And I think that has a lot to do with what my perceived belief, or my impression, I guess, my perception, that's what it is, Rachel. I think that's to do a lot with what my perception of blue balls was. So yeah, I think, yeah, some guys maybe do use it as a manipulative technique to get girls to finish the job, or to get anyone to finish the job. Let's be inclusive. And some people probably genuinely are just experiencing really intense pain. And I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. The good news is I did some research on it, and there are no long-term dangers associated with it. So there'll be discomfort or pain for a period of time, but it goes away and there's no long-lasting effects. So very interesting. Love TikTok, and I love the things that you learn from TikTok. Go figure. Today, I sit down with Rick. We talk about personal catalysts in the form of art and also in the form of ketamine infusions. Rick was in healthcare and kind of experienced a series of events that led to an intense period of time, which then led to a period of self-discovery, and art and these ketamine infusions helped along the way. And so we talk about that, and I do want to say, it might go without saying based on that, but what I just described, but little just content warning for this episode. We do talk about depression. We do talk about, difficult feelings. So, just sensitive listeners, be aware that there are some moments in here where, we just touch on some darker topics. So just a heads up there. I also say, and I think this episode, which was recorded in early 2021, I said, I think we're rounding the corner with all of this COVID stuff. And, joke's on me. That was way before Delta, way before Omicron. And yeah, it's hard to believe that we're entering the third year of this, but we are. And I guess that leads me to my final point, tying it all together very nicely with, Rick and what his line of work was and COVID, and also bringing it into healthcare. If you know a healthcare worker, tell them that you appreciate them. They are so fucking exhausted. My best friend works in a hospital, and she got her wisdom teeth taken out and then was back 2 days later doing her job in the hospital. It's insane. And people are getting sick and being told that they still have to go to work. I mean, in the beginning, you had these healthcare workers who were appreciated. Whenever there was a shift change, people would honk their horns or bang pots and pans to let the healthcare workers know that they were appreciated. But that stopped. Healthcare workers have been begging, pleading people to wear masks. And so many of them have quit because they're just completely burned out, and, they're having lasting mental health issues as a result. And this kind of really hit me. I mean, obviously I have my best friend and I have some family members who are in the medical field, but I went and I got COVID tested when I was back home just a couple days after Christmas, and I went and I signed in, and then they led me back to the space. It was very efficient. And the nurse swabbed my nose very quick, and I said, "Thank you so much." And she did a double take and looked back at me and said, "Thank you for thanking me. We don't get that very much anymore." And that made me incredibly sad, because these people are working so hard to protect us, and they're exhausted. They're putting themselves at risk. They're putting their families at risk. And I just think we did a really good job of appreciating healthcare workers early on, and I think it's time to bring some of that appreciation back. So let the healthcare workers in your life know that you appreciate them. Ask them if you can do something for them. Maybe order them a pizza so it gets delivered right when they get off of a shift or something. I don't know. All right. I guess we're going to jump right into the episode then. Going to talk to Rick today about, again, personal catalysts in the form of art and ketamine infusions. And exciting things coming up here on the pod this year, doing some more interviews, and I'm just really excited. So follow on TikTok. If you have any questions or things that you want me to cover, email at winedine@allportsopen.com. And I'm going to cut to a commercial break really quickly, and then please enjoy my conversation with Rick.
What is it, honey?
It's that darn ghost again. He just won't leave us alone. I guess we're just going to have to move.
No, wait. Don't worry. We're not moving. He is.
Who are you going to call?
Blockbusters. Actually, we know nothing about catching ghosts other than what we saw in that old cartoon. But if you want a podcast where we talk about film, TV, random tangents that leave you wondering what the hell was that all about, and the occasional nugget of wisdom, then we're the ones for you. And if you act now, you can listen to our entire back catalogue for free.
Did you say free?
Yes, I did. So go now to your nearest podcatching device, shake off the ectoplasm, and download us today. Warning, listening to Blockbusters can lead to stomach cramps from laughing, headaches from attempting to remember what tangent they went on this time, and a worn-out section of your device's screen/keyboard as you smash the replay button over and over until the next episode arrives. If your Blockbusters episode lasts longer than 4 hours, tell your doctor so he can listen as well.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am here today with one of our storytellers, Rick. How are you doing today, Rick?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's it feels like things are finally starting to round the corner when it comes to the COVID stuff. So not too bad. Hanging in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've just tried to keep my head down as best as possible, and work on the network around me, so to speak. And
exactly. Yep. What if we start off? You just tell me a little bit about who you are and what your personal journey has looked like.
Absolutely. First, I would like to just say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on your show and to share a part of my story, because I think that it's something that it's very important to me, and I think that there are a lot of lessons that can be learned just not from, just not on a personal level, but by sharing it to help other people who might be at a different stage or, struggling with some of the same things, to see somebody else being able to not only, conquer their issues or their, the things that have been kind of holding on to them, but to thrive and become successful, not in spite of them, but because of them, and using and putting them out front to help, boost or boast your success. So, and that's just mainly what I've been focusing on a lot lately. I'm just recently kind of transitioned. I was a paramedic for 6 years and then an EMT for another 6 years before that. So my entire adult life was spent working on an ambulance, which left me with a lot of kind of very traumatic experiences and emotions that were never really dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2019, I broke both of my legs in a skateboarding accident, which basically caused me to have to retire from EMS. I was just not going to be able to do it anymore. My legs didn't heal all the way back, and it wasn't going to be fair to the patients that I was going to be treating, and it wasn't going to be fair to me continuing to push my body past, the breaking point, so to speak, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So that kind of taking essentially my identity away from me and putting me in a role as a father, which I have a lot of traumatic issues and experiences from childhood involving my father and growing up. So that led to a quick deterioration of my mental health, and add that in with the pandemic and everything else, I got to a point where I no longer felt safe. I needed somebody to help me, because I didn't, if I could have just ceased to exist at that moment, I would have just ceased to exist, because I had no, I couldn't see where I needed to go. So I started to look into some kind of inpatient treatment, some sort of specialized treatment for PTSD
Okay.
and the symptoms of that. And I found, for some reason, I'm a big nerd when it comes to things that I'm into. So uh, I researched a lot just on my own free time, out of my own, curiosity. And at one point, I must have read something about ketamine as a treatment for PTSD, because I had that thought. And whenever I searched it, I found a ketamine infusion center about 30 minutes from my house.
Hmm.
And I guess the rest is just history, I guess, because I went there, got on a regimen of ketamine, which is the first 6 treatments have to be done within 3 weeks. And because the clinic that I go to follows the actual, like, the study requirements. Like, whenever they did the study, they do that exact treatment regimen.
Sure.
So it's 6 infusions over 3 weeks. And then after that, you have to get maintenance doses every so often. And that's just basically determined by the individual.
Okay. Yeah. How frequently do those happen?
Well, for me, I do them every month. I've got actually one coming up here in, I think, the next week.
Okay.
So, but they're expensive. I think. So one of the boosters, and it's geographically kind of dependent too. So
Sure. Yeah.
it's going to be more.
Yeah, you're lucky that there's one close by.
Yeah, I'm just lucky there's one close by. And then I've also looked up a few other cities and sent out information to other first responders that I know, or that I talk to. So I do a lot of kind of information spreading too as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Preaching the word.
right. So after my first treatment, my life changed. I took about a 4-hour nap, and then I woke up and everything was different. Everything felt so unbelievably raw. Just existence. Like, I'm trying to think. So imagine, like, you know how when it's really, really cold out and the wind on your bare skin? Like
Yes.
just imagine that sort of kind of rawness. And that's
Just
how
the nerves are like over
yes.
sensitive. Yeah.
Yes. And like my emotional, system was just completely exposed, and my mind was quiet. Because I went outside to go smoke a cigarette, and I remember hearing the birds, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And
It's
then,
like you were hearing it for the first time.
yeah, it was like, and I just remember, I was like, my God, I love the sound of these birds. Like, where have they been? And it's just, and then, like, I could just hear my own thought echoing in my empty mind, because there's nothing else that is being crammed in there by my insecurities, my anxieties, anything. Like, it's all silent. And it was,
Yeah, peace.
oh my, there's no words to describe it. And that was the moment that I was like, this is my mission now. I can't continue to help people through being on an ambulance, but that doesn't mean that I cannot continue to help people. This time,
Right.
though, I can help the people that work on the ambulances, like the community that I was a part of. Now that I have found, my hope, my relief. now it was time to preach it. That was
Sure.
the idea that I got into. So I got really, really into trying to work that out. And that was one of the first projects that I had started working on that's still on the back burner, but kind of had to take a back seat due to the increasing success with my art. But I was working on a foundation called Ketamine, which
Okay.
is a foundation that I'm starting to help first responders, to inform them and to help them afford their ketamine treatments. So it's going to be it's a nonprofit that it's in the works, but I don't. I'm one person, so I'm trying to figure out what's the best path to take is to get a bigger platform to share more information. But it's still there, and it's going to be eventually it'll take center stage. But right now,
Yeah, I know that game of
yeah,
that. Well, I guess that's something that we don't really think about a ton. Like we think about PTSD in terms of veterans and like abuse victims, but it strikes me that like why wouldn't we think of first responders, emergency responders? I mean, you see some horrific things.
oh yeah,
Like, so of course, there would be things that would keep you up at night or things that you have a hard time kind of recovering from. So, that's so cool that you've like found that niche that really could use, this treatment.
and that's the thing is it's a running joke with a lot of EMS, especially like primarily EMS related. We talk about how we're never thought of, or we're always forgotten when it comes to things like that, because there are a lot of programs like police officers are very out in front in the spotlight with mental health and
Sure.
internally. So do fire departments and all that. It seems like EMS is still kind of the scattered to the wind, not really. There's no universal kind of procedures or anything like that, and a lot of people get lost in the system like that.
Yeah.
And I know there's a friend of mine that has a wonderful nonprofit that she's doing called Code. I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's Code Code Peer EMS Support Group, and
Okay.
it is a primarily EMS focused nonprofit for their mental health of EMTs and paramedics. So they're doing really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So there's a lot of different things starting to sprout up, and it's starting to become more of a topic that is being discussed, and that's where I want to be at. I want to be on the front lines of this for those that can't anymore. Like, it's not just something that I see as a way to, find self-worth, but for me to share my story and be the ambassador to say like, hey guys, like stop being so dumb about it. Like, talk about it. It's okay. Because there's a stigma about it. It's a lot of first responders, and I'm only speaking solely based on the ones that I know in myself that
Sure.
have, or the ones that have expressed to me that the culture has really made it hard for them to open up and to talk about how they feel, or like to say to even admit to somebody like, yo, that run that we just did that fucked me up, like I need to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Instead, they feel that they have to internalize that because it's going to make them look like less of a provider, or they're going to get, they won't get promoted, or whatever, whatever their personal reasons for it is. But it's always been kind of supported by the culture of EMS, and that's what I really want to start chipping away at, is trying to end that.
Yeah, it's hard to be the one who's always strong.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to be the one who's always strong. It's hard to be the one who is seen as the giver. But the people who give the most also, need to be supported at the same time. So I think that's really awesome that there's this new kind of initiative to put focus to that, because we need to protect the people that protect us.
Absolutely. I think that it's one of those things that will forever be near and dear to me, and something that that internal fire for it will never go out.
Right. Well, talk to me about, so you said you decided to seek help. You went to therapy?
Well, I did start therapy, but it was probably August or so I had started therapy, but it was teletherapy, and I was real not into that. It was basically me paying a guy $65 to listen to me self-diagnose and then go, I think that's about right. It's like, oh well, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it takes work to find the right therapist. I've definitely had similar experiences with some therapists. Got to find the right match for sure.
Yeah.
Well, did you learn anything from therapy? Even I find that sometimes when I just like process out loud, like verbally, it allows me to kind of come to realizations. I actually just did that today with a career coach that I've been working with.
Yeah, I would say that, I guess, yeah, just having somebody that actually knows the ins and outs of therapy and the little nuances about the profession that I don't know,
sure,
kind of confirm that I'm pretty close to how I see myself and what I see my issues are. So that, I think that helped out a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes you think that you're crazy, and then it helps to know that, oh no, okay, my view is spot on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the biggest thing, I think, though, that the ketamine did for me was, I think it was clean the slate, so to speak. Control Alt Delete to
tabula rasa.
Yeah, that just completely reset my interface that I register the world with, and it is led to just the most unbelievable things.
Yeah, talk to me about that. So what are the infusions like? Is it like, you get, my mom's a cancer patient, and I know that some of the people that she knows, she doesn't have a port, but I know that some people do. Is it like a shot that you get? Like, tell me how that works, and like the science behind it, I guess.
So the way that it goes is I show up at the clinic and I go to my private room, and they have what they call a medical recliner, but it's just like a recliner that you would sleep in if you were at the hospital staying.
Okay,
with
sure.
It's just like one of those. It's not uncomfortable, but it's not super comfortable. And then they have a CBD infuser in the room that's going.
Oh, okay.
And some people, like, they have a laser light show, but I usually opt for deprivation rather than sensation.
So wait, that's just to like chill you out, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's just for you to focus on while, being infused.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
And
interesting. That's fascinating.
It's like, I would imagine this is how maybe opium dens in the in the turn of the century would have operated, except, without the laser light show. Maybe they'd have like some kind of burlesque
probably
dance.
I was gonna say probably sex workers.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been a hooker. Or definitely. I don't know if that's
It would have been politically correct at the time.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like,
no worries. Yeah, burlesque dancer I think is also appropriate. So
yeah.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So.
So it does involve an IV. So they will start an IV on you,
Okay.
and then you have a individual, like a specific dose or concentration for you that is based off of your weight, which is usually they do between 0.5 and 1 milligram per kilogram.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
I can do the quick
interesting.
I can do the quick math in my head because that's basically, that's what I've been doing. But
yeah, definitely.
so my I'm at I think I'm at 65 milligrams, like, total. And so they will take that and put it into 100 cc's of saline, and it'll run on a
Okay.
pump, and then it'll infuse.
How long are you usually sitting there? Yeah.
I think it overall it takes roughly about 45 minutes. The whole thing in
Okay.
itself is probably about an hour and a half, but the infusion part is about 45 minutes to an hour, and then you got about 15 minutes of coming back to earth.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I know. I know ketamine. Well, my experience with ketamine is my dad's lung collapsed a number of years ago, and he had a really bad trip because I guess, like, sometimes you can go into what they call a K-hole with ketamine, and then if they don't give you enough of, like, the alternate drug to bring you out of it, you can, like, remember your really bad trip. So my dad thought that he had died when I came into the hospital room, and he thought that I was an angel. It was very scary. But I know also that some people use ketamine recreationally. So how do these dosages vary from, like, those two other examples are all that I know of ketamine.
So I think so with the infusions, it's a really, really small dose as far as in the realm of the other two, because I'm actually quite familiar with giving ketamine as well, because I used to give it as a paramedic to sedate people that there were people that I was like, hey, this person is breathing really bad and I need to sedate them and paralyze them and then put a tube in them and then breathe for them. So,
Wow.
and there's been instances where it's like, hey, like, I need to do that. So you sedate them with the ketamine, and it's it's usually a pretty large, it's a much larger dose than what I'm receiving.
Okay.
It's usually, anywhere between 100 to, you could go even up to 300 milligrams. Like,
oh wow, yeah.
overall, yeah. And I'm like, so I'm doing, and I'm getting my 65 milligrams over 45 minutes versus them getting, 100 milligrams, 150 milligrams all at once.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Everything in moderation.
Right. So it's a shock to the system. And then recreationally, I see, I've never even seen recreational, but from my understanding of recreational, I think it's more that it's measured in the gram and they snort it. I think it's more of a,
gosh.
yeah, but
It's like a club drug. I know that I was at a party once and there was a guy who was he looked like he was having a fucking blast, like, let me tell you. But I was like, yeah, like that person is not sober fully there, and I found out later that they were high on ketamine.
I don't
Go figure.
I have no idea how that would even work. Like, so whenever I do my infusions, like, I'm on a cardiac monitor, I'm on a a pulse ox that measures my oxygen levels, blood pressure, and so sometimes, like, things can, alarms go off, and it's not necessarily, it means like something bad's going on. It just means like something needs to be attended to.
Okay,
So
sure.
like, and the way that I do my infusions is I do deprivation. So I have noise canceling headphones that I play my own music through, and I have my own ketamine jams, is what I call it. My mix on
You have a playlist?
Spotify. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And then I have a sleep mask that I also, and then I cover my eyes up with a toboggan, so there's
Okay.
no light, and just I listen to my music and focus on my music. But sometimes, like when they come in there and there's like kind of a commotion, like I can pull my, I'm still conscious and alert and know where I'm at,
Right.
and like I'll open my eyes and look, and I feel like I'm melting, and I can't speak, and it's just it would be a nightmare if I had to perform anything other than just lay there.
Yeah. No, I can't. I can't imagine. Well, how long? When was your first infusion? Give me the timeline.
My first infusion, I think, was right at the end of September, early October, I think.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you've been at it for like about half a year now.
Well, I see. Uh, well, so I I got real focused on getting the Ketamine Foundation and really getting the word out. And I was on Reddit. I was on hadn't got to Instagram yet, but I was on Twitter and a few other different platforms. I did a couple of podcasts back then, very early on, and I didn't realize that my health savings account had ran out. So
I know how that goes.
I was left without the ability to get a treatment, and everything kind of started to unravel.
Got it.
And that's when I had started to kind of get back into my art as a way to occupy my mind, so I could have some sort of defense to keep the ever approaching intrusive thoughts from entering.
Yep. Well, how would you say that your life has changed as a result of that?
Oh, I
Like,
mean,
what are the differences that you notice when
for,
you are on it, when you're up to date with the infusions, when you're not up to date with the infusions?
oh, it's unbelievable the amount of kind of effect, like the how how hold on, I'm trying to think of the way. I'm due for an infusion, so it's starting to take in. So I didn't realize how intrusive and how overreaching my PTSD was, and how greatly it affected my ability to function. Because what I was functioning at prior to the ketamine to now, I would say that I'm functioning closer to 90% efficiency, to prior to that about 45% efficiency,
Wow.
because there is this, I use it as mental, I say mental clarity, like this I have more capacity, because it feels like this fog that clouds everything and makes thoughts hard to conceptualize, and very, very easily fleeting.
Hmm.
And I can that's the first sign that I notice is of things kind of
Sure.
creeping back in. Um just my drive is, and my motivation is another one that was greatly improved with the ketamine. So that's another early sign that things are kind of starting to drop below therapeutic levels, because like
Okay.
I know like I have a list of, so many different things to do, and I'm just like, I don't want to do any of those. Nothing.
Yeah.
And then I start to get like more and more exhausted just through normal everyday things, and it's a very, because it's strange, because most people, when you say PTSD, they think of that as a mental condition. It's no, it's physical. It has physical ramifications, like on you and your well-being.
Absolutely.
And 100%, like my anxiety is millions of times better than it was, like, and that all of these small kind of improvements that were linked to my anxiety, my PTSD and stuff like that, have directly related to the success that I have found now, which was born out of necessity to pay for my ketamine treatments.
Yeah, it's funny how things come together when push comes to shove.
Yeah, and most for the I would say for the majority of my life, it was when push came to shove, I was the only one there to to make that whatever it needed to happen. And that's just what I did, because I had started with my art, my digital art, which isn't anything. I messed around with a little bit of digital art with my cell phone back when I had broken my legs. But nothing to the scale that I was doing now, or that I was even, or what I'm was doing back then either, because I just started to create art, and my friends, family, and started to kind of notice it, and I did a couple of pieces for different projects that some of my friends were working on, and then I posted some of it to a local subreddit, and that's when I realized that there's something to it, because I got my first offer ever for somebody to buy my art, like that night, back in,
Wow.
I want to say it had to be really, really late January.
So recently.
Very, very recently.
Wow.
And it took off from there. I posted a couple of more pieces to an EMS related forum on a subreddit, and that took off, and it seemed like everywhere that I was starting to post my art, it was just exploding. And so I made a plan to start, making enough to get my ketamine treatments. And at this point, I had no idea what the possibilities were.
Sure.
I was like, oh, I can just draw pictures for people? Yes. This is nice. But it just completely, it took it, and it's still taking every bit of my mental fortitude to just stay ahead of this and try to wrangle it, try to, I feel like I'm wrestling cattle, I'm just, come on, we got to get this idea to the pasture.
It takes a
But
lot of work to pivot.
oh, but it's been so unbelievably rewarding and has become far more successful than I would have ever imagined. Like I was like, man, if I can get $200 a month extra on this, that would be great.
Yeah.
And I was just going over some information. Like I'm constantly getting numbers and nerding out on everything and trying to paint a graph of my success, because I don't know I've never done this before, so I don't know. I don't have any context for success. I don't know
Sure.
what it means to be successful in this area, because this is new territory. So I'm trying to kind of build this roadmap for myself to see, so I can see, because right now everything's super abstract and I'm just like, I don't know. Can we get some lines on a graph? But sorry.
No.
Um but yeah, through my Shopify store, they give you little tidbits and Snapple facts about your metrics, and my store is in the top 11th percent of stores that open the same week as my store for
Oh my gosh.
overall traffic. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Um
It's almost like it's almost like everything happened when it was supposed to so that the stars could align.
yes.
Like you were taught what you needed to be taught by, the universe or whatever, higher power there you might believe in, it everything just kind of aligned.
And it's funny you should say that, because I have been kind of pondering on that whole kind of idea as well, that that my success was it was I wasn't ready for it. I was not ready mentally. I was not ready spiritually, or universally, whatever. Like my being was not ready to exist in that capacity.
Well, what about so I guess I have like two major questions. The first is kind of a shorter one, which is like, what are the side effects of ketamine? I mean, we kind of covered on how it's used in different ways. Like, are there any negative things? Is it possible? Is it addictive? I don't know anything about it really. So, are there any downsides to these treatments?
I think medically, there's no real correlation between addiction. I think in the capacity that I am receiving it, but I think anything can be addictive that creates a euphoric feeling. But I don't
Sure.
I don't think so. And as far as overall negatives, there's nothing that I have perceived as a negative, but there are things. So the way that ketamine has been working for me, it's not that it just makes all the bad stuff go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's all still there, but all of its potency has been taken away, which will allow you to kind of pull those memories out piece by piece, and sort through them and deal with them.
Okay. So you
But
need to be ready to like do the work.
yeah, there's work that has to be done with it. It can't, it's not just an infusion that you get. You have to use that new kind of mental clarity to start decluttering all of
Sure.
that, all of the things that you've been holding on to, or that have been holding on to you. You got to start, and then, but those, like, that's just the little part. That's not the hard part. The hard part is when you uncover those huge, nasty, gross truths about yourself that you don't want to believe, or you don't want to accept. You don't want to be the reason for your own failure, or you don't want to be the catalyst for everything that's gone wrong in your life, right? So you build
Right.
this ego up about yourself to kind of pamper reality a little bit. But once you get down to it, like those are the things that you've got to accept, and you have
Yeah.
to, because once you accept those, there's nothing holding you back. You don't have those nagging regrets, and then it leads to you being able to figure out how you work and to use your so-called flaws to your advantage, or at
Okay.
least to be able to identify them and correct them before they become an issue. So you know yourself way more intimately, and I think that is something that a lot of people might struggle with or might have an issue with, is getting to that point, to be able to really accept who you are and what you've been through, and allowing that to make up your idea of who you are, and seeing that is I think is really hard for people.
Yeah. No, I can see that. Well, I guess that's a good piece of advice to, for people who might be listening, that this isn't the right path if you're not ready to, kind of dig in and get messy.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. It's not an easy fix, not a band-aid.
I if you I suggested, I think that I know that if it was I was terrified before this, because I didn't know, because my idea, I was like, what if they take my anxiety away, then what am I gonna feel?
You
You
don't want
know?
to be numb.
Yeah, I was like, well, I mean, am I just gonna like be the guy? Like, I got anxiety about not having anxiety, which is ridiculous. But
Ugh, I know the feeling well.
yes, I think that would be one of the number one things that I would want somebody to know before going into it.
Yeah, be prepared. Be prepared for things to get a little messy before they. Well, yeah, it just sounds like it kind of creates this clarity, and that clarity makes it easier to, I think you use the word like declutter.
Yeah.
And kind of put things where they need to go so that you can understand them and work on them more. Well, how has like your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others changed as a result of this transformation,
So I'm gonna lead in from the hard truth and say that one of my hard truths was that I was not allowing I was getting angry that nobody was, understanding me,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't giving them the opportunity to. I was not revealing what I wanted them to understand like I had perceived I was. Because after the
Okay.
ketamine, like, and it was like I could just, it was like a photo book. I could just skim through my memories and look and be like, oh man, yeah, I was totally fucked up right there. Like, I was totally wrong. Like, why was I like that? Like, and that's kind of what leads to the self discoveries, because you start to look back on your past memories and you're like, why was I doing this? Like, why? And then it kind of drives you to look deeper into yourself. And that's what it did. And I just found out that I was harboring a lot of pain and resentment from my childhood, based off of my relationship with my father, that I was using as a lens to view the world in.
Okay.
So everybody that I interacted with automatically started in a deficit with me.
Interesting.
Which then
Very
led,
interesting.
yeah, it's one of those things that with the ketamine, you start to have these revelations, and you can't stop them. And it's just, and I don't. It's just a lead of thought, or from. It's just a process of thoughts that lead into this much bigger, like, dropping of, like, something about you that may be uncomfortable.
Sure. Do you feel like you're talking about all of this, so openly and freely with a lot of vulnerability, which for me is incredibly refreshing. Maybe that sounds sexist or whatever, but it's rare that we don't know each other, and it's rare that you meet somebody and you're able to just kind of say off the bat, this is who I am, this is what I'm dealing with, like, here you go. Is that new too? Have you always kind of been like that? Did it get like more expressed through the infusions, or is it something like totally new to you?
Well, see, so I've always been a very outwardly open and kind of eccentric person. Like, I've always been very high energy, outgoing, but most of that was just a facade. Like, most of that was
Okay.
me creating an ego about myself to protect myself from actually experiencing the world. So, as far as being open and being, myself, I felt that I was always that. But now I'm that, but just more myself. Like, it's not just me trying to create some sort of image of myself to keep people at a distance. Now it's the exact opposite. I've turned it into a way to try to draw people in. And it was one of the things that mentally I could turn it on and off. It was one of those kind of, almost, it felt like an alter ego, so to speak, whenever I had to,
Sure.
be publicly engaging. But now it is a lot different, because I am sharing my experiences and my stories, and being sort of this kind of beacon of, hey, it's okay, talk about it. I don't know how else to kind of describe it. I think that a lot of people they probably want to talk about it. They probably, like, I think that there are a lot of people out there that could see, me talking about and being open and be like, man, I could do that. I could, I want to do that. So
It's
I don't
very courageous. It's hard though.
see, that's the thing. Like, it doesn't feel hard at all.
Yeah.
It's not, I've been doing a lot of personal sharing over the past 6 months, so I think maybe it's gotten a lot easier for me now. But this would never be something that would have been able to been discussed.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think that when you make a habit of oversharing, I've always been a huge overshare.
Oh,
I'll meet
yes,
somebody
absolutely.
and I'll be like, "This is who I am. Want to hear about my traumas?"
Yeah.
maybe not. Like, it depends on where I'm at. Probably, if I'm going to come out the gate with that soon. But I'm very willing to be vulnerable and to talk about. I don't want to do small talk or talk about the weather. I want to talk about the universe and
Yeah.
vulnerability and the deeper things. But there are some people who that doesn't feel safe, which is weird to me and weird to you. But I think that a lot of the world operates in a place where that doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, and that makes me really sad,
Yeah, me too.
because I think more people should enjoy life and explore their curiosities and try to understand a little bit more about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think with that, I think if we as individuals worked a little bit better at maintaining if we work better at maintaining our own lawns, that we'd see that everything isn't as bad as what it might seem. But I think that is what leads to, I think, people's fears of themselves and those hard truths are what compels them to try to muddle in other people's kind of existences and say that, well, I don't think that's right. And rather than exploring why they don't think that's right, they just project that fear and insecurity outward and create an ego about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to learn from that.
Yes.
Well, if you were to, from your experiences, your experiences as a kid, through to the PTSD that you went through as an EMS, to your accident, to these ketamine infusions, this new career path, like if there's like one thing that and all of us have a beautiful journey, right? Like I just outlined yours, so it feels like a lot. But if you, what's like the one thing you would want people to know that's like the biggest thing that you've learned that you would want to share with other people?
The biggest thing that I think I've learned is to be easier on yourself and to be easier on others, because we're all in the same boat, but we're not all weathering the same storm.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised at how much an insignificant gesture of kindness goes, like how far that would go to make somebody's day better. So
Right.
just be more mindful and considerate and understand that we're all in this together, and it's better to, I don't know, just don't be an asshole.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, if people want to see your art, where can they find you?
You can find me at 5011_media on Instagram. That's primarily where I dwell.
Okay. Awesome. And then I'm sure your Shopify is linked on there too and everything.
Yeah, Shopify. You can find the Shopify link for my stuff in my bio on Instagram. I'm working on a website. I have it. It's 5011media.com, but it is not together because I have so much other stuff going on. It's on the list.
I get it.
But yeah, if you want to follow me, I post a lot of my art. I do live stream videos where I talk about I tell more in-depth stories about kind of what I've experienced, more kind of specific stories, kind of things that I've had to deal with while, trying to create my own business. It's just, I'm trying to add as much value and be as available as possible for anybody that might be interested in my story or just checking out what I'm about.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your vulnerability and for sharing your story. I'm gonna, link some maybe articles in the episode notes about ketamine infusions that people who don't know much about it can learn even more about it. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I know that our listeners will too.
Awesome. That's great. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of tell my story and to just be vulnerable. And it just means a lot. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And everybody, thank you for listening. This has been Wine, Dine, and 69. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.